And the recording started, so we'll call this meeting to. Hold on. All right, so we will call this meeting, special council meeting of August 18th, 2021 to order at 6:32. Roll call. Do we have that on the agenda?
Yes.
All right.
And the pledge.
Well, then we will start with our normal prayer and pledge. All right, so we will call this meeting, special council meeting of August 18th, 2021 to order at 6:32. Sorry. IT problems. All right. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And they didn't turn the clock. Yeah, I heard it ring.
They haven't done it yet, Chuck.
All right, now we can do roll call.
Cosgrave.
Present.
Present. Hamilton.
Present.
Atkinson.
Present.
Keller.
Present.
Curry. Present.
All right, everyone's here, which is good because this is a emergency meeting. All right, so our first agenda item, which is up here, visitors. We happen to have approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the special meeting
I
agenda?
move that we approve the agenda as
4 seconds.
Foreman seconds, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, agenda approved. Visitors, we have the guys here. They are here to answer questions about the projects, if we have any. So we will move on to the new business discussion, and I will turn it over to Terry.
Great. Thank you. First of all, I want to thank everyone for coming on such a short notice. But this whole process has been quick turnaround on timelines. So I appreciate it, especially for Jeff to get all of the documentation around. So tonight that you all can vote on it, and I'll let Jeff explain that further. So we as a team had sat down and looked at projects that we could possibly use this money for from House Bill 168. We had identified 2 waterline projects. One was West Market Street, one was West Washington Street. We engaged V3, and they had turned around then to give us an itemized statement, which is in your packet, that says exactly how much this project is. The one that's not in your packet is for West Market Street, and it came back almost $1.2 million. You know, once we saw that, I knew that we had to change our line of thinking, that there is no way we had the kind of money that we need to match to be able to be in the running for this grant. So what we did is the team came back together. We met with Mike, and we talked about what is it that we can do. And so we asked Mike to then give us an estimate on doing the West Washington Street project. And in the meantime, we started looking at, which let me back up. There are 2 kinds of grants you can submit for. One is a construction grant that has to be ready to go within 1 to 6 months, which we feel as though we have with this water line. The other one is a design grant, and that design grant is a project that you're thinking about that you really need to have more information and to design how you're going to go about it. So that is how we chose the 2 projects. The water line on West Market being on West Washington being the construction grant we're going to apply for, and the I&I initiative that we're under through the EPA that we're going to apply for also as a design grant. So having said this, you have a couple of maps in your package, and you can see that this project will begin at Tower Street, and then it runs approximately 420 4,240 feet west, ending at West Market Street. So this will be, we'll put in a 12-inch line. That will replace the line that's in there that was installed in 1936, which is probably a cast iron line that has various sizes. And this will take us from tower out to market with one consistent size. They say the project useful life is going to be 40 years. Well, you can see that the other one lasted twice that. So I think this is a really good investment. All of the water customers along the new line will be tied directly into this new water line, which consists of 34 short services and 19 long services. So, but we also believe, and we're working on that verbiage right now, that the larger capacity line will help us improve the water quality, not only to those direct services, but also to the entire western half of the village, consisting of approximately 1,400 residents based on our distribution flow. So what does that mean? That means that while we were going to do Market, because we thought that could be the main trunk line, we think we will get almost the same results by doing Washington. Now, through last Friday was yet another webinar that I sat in, and they are looking for entities when they submit to have matching funds. So we currently are getting, and Brian can give you the exact amount, but about $314,000 from our ARP. We've already received the first payment, with the second payment coming, I believe, next year. So the idea is to take that ARP money and use it as our match against this grant, which means we would be matching about 40%. The only thing it doesn't take care of are the soft costs, because most grants don't pay for engineering. And those are costs that we would have to come up with outside that money. Brian has been working on finding us that money, and I think we at least found half of it. So we're almost to the $85,000 that it would take to pay for the soft costs. I believe this is the best investment of our ARP money. Now, if something would happen that we say, okay, we're going to match this, and then the state comes back and says, sorry, you didn't get the grant, we still have our $314,000 then to try to do something with. But this, being able to put it towards this big of a project, to be able to service that large of the section of the village, is really the right way to go. The other project, and then I'm going to be quiet to ask questions, the design project for the I&I, we are not going to put any funds towards. What we are going to use instead is our discharge permit issued by the EPA. Says that we have to have so much money and do so many things for I&I over the next few years. I believe that is a standalone, and that will work just submitting that letter from EPA. So I'm going to stop talking and let you ask questions. That is why I asked the team to join tonight, in case there were some questions that I couldn't answer. So, let's talk about the process. One more thing about the process. So tomorrow, after you sign all, pass hopefully all of this legislation tonight, we will register our project with the state of Ohio. Now, we can go in and register for the state. The state will start looking at it, but they will not make any decisions until after the county engineers enter in their priority list. So we're submitting to two places, one to the state and one to the Fairfield County engineer. What he is going to do, he has set a submission date of the 24th, which is a week from this coming Friday. He will review all of the projects from Fairfield County, and then he will put them in what he considers the priority based on criteria. So he will only submit to the state the top 10 projects that he thinks are good for the county. Now, what does that mean? Say we're project number 11 or 12. Does that mean we're totally out of the running? No, but we would get 0 points. all of this is based on a grading criteria. And again, that is at your seat in front of you, some of that criteria, so you can see what we're up against. You know, 2 sections of that criteria talks about putting in water lines where there are no water lines, and also sewer lines where there are new sewer lines, are doing a joint venture with a district and not just a single entity. We will probably lose all of those points. So going in, everything is good, which I think we have a great project. I think we have a great match. I think we have a really good chance. The most points we're going to get is 70. So that's 70 out of 100, which doesn't say we're going to be the #1 project for the state, but it does say that that is probably right at the cutoff that we still should be able to make it. So the process is a little complicated, but again, you know, the engineer from Fairfield County is going to have input into it, and we want to get all of those points from him and not 0. So I'll stop if you have any questions about the process, or if you have any questions about the projects, just let us know. So I open the floor to questions.
What size line are we talking again, Terry?
12.
It's 12 all the way down?
She can't hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you. 12 all the way down, correct.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure we were all the way
Right.
down.
The map that you have up, as you can see, it says 12, and it goes from Tower Street all the way out, and we're stopping at Market Street.
So what kind of time frame? You say the state and the county and everything. What do you think the earliest we can get started on this or not? Or you have any idea?
Well, to tell you the truth, Mr. Keller, I think, well, again, like I said, 24th is Jeremiah, then they're going to ship it off to the state. Even if they turn this around yet this year, I don't see us being able to do installation. Even though the state says 1 to 6 months, I mean, my goodness, that's in the middle of winter, that
Yeah.
time frame. So I'm saying that we could get it bid out so that when spring comes, then we can open it up with a project if we're lucky enough to get, you know, the project.
Okay.
And
Other
that's, as I was saying, we're talking, you said 1,400 people?
Yeah, and the team's sitting there. So team, you can answer these questions too. We feel as though with the distribution- Okay, go.
Yep, Joe, okay, Joe's saying roughly 1,400.
You're gonna direct impact roughly 70 service connections. What are residents in those homes? I'm not sure, but ultimately, we're gonna impact the whole west end of town, which is roughly 1,400.
Okay,
So what was the match requirement on this? My concern is that the Water Street or the Market Street line has had 3 major
Mhm.
breaches in the last year since it was paved. And so I get that it's a lot more money for the Market Street project. And I'm not against the Washington Street project at all. I'm just concerned about the Market Street line and other breaches that may happen, and maybe even more likely when we add all this volume.
Correct. And I understand your concern, but also understand that it's $1.2 million to do that line. I think that realistically, we need to have a project that is that we can at least have a shot at. Remember, out of the 100 points, we're probably going to not even start until 70. So I believe that, do I think Market Street needs to be done? Yes, but I think the goal is here, and this would be my suggested goal, is how can we spend the funding that we're getting to the best of our ability and most efficiently, that our residents are not taxed with yet another increase in their water.
So what's the match percentage on these projects?
There is no match percentage, Mr. Foreman. That is how much are you going to match? based on our expertise on matching grants, and remember, we've gotten quite a few OPWCs, this will put us at 40, and that's kind of the magic number.
I get, I mean, we're gonna use the $314,000 to match. And
Correct.
314,000 plus roughly 80, so 400,000 gets us a $700,000 project. What's the backup project if we don't get this grant for the 314? What can we do with that?
With the 314?
Yeah,
Okay, all right, guys, you can talk about the water lines we've talked about replacing if we don't get
We're
this.
looking at, we'd like to do something from West Market on Granville, North Granville. Well, East Market,
Yeah.
going north on Granville, turning the corner on East Water, going up the hill to the railroad tracks.
so we would have funds to do that,
Potentially, yeah.
but that's not the worst affected area versus the west side.
That is
And my
correct.
concern here with the match question and so forth is that I've actually seen projects denied because they didn't aim high enough. That's my only concern. I mean, I'm all for both projects when it comes to Market or Washington. I would 100% support both. But I would hate to see the lesser project get denied because we didn't aim high enough or think big enough. That's my only concern. So I'm good with either. I will support either. But I do know that we've had problems on Market Street, and sometimes the people we're dealing with are looking for a bigger project that they can take credit for, or, you know, say, look, we really fixed this problem. And I'm concerned that maybe we're aiming too low. That's my only concern. I'm 100% in support of both options.
Well, I guess the flip to that though is if we do a $1.2 million project, council's going to have no choice but to either borrow funds.
Or less than our percentage.
Well, no, I mean, no, we don't have, I mean, Brian's scrambling to find the 85,000 that we need for the soft costs.
But what I heard was
So-
that there was no required percentage.
There's no required percentage,
Okay.
but if we don't get the full 1.2 million on it, or at that point, we'd be asking for 700,000
Right.
and they give it to us, then council has to either borrow money and increase the debt and the debt payments, or increase the rates, the usage rates to make up for that loss. So
Didn't we have quite a bit of money left in the water fund last year, though, at the end of the year? I mean, I know you can't deficit spend every year, but we put that money in savings at 1%.
If
And it's,
Joey goes through his budget this year, he will have a carryover of about $1,000.
okay, but last year.
But last year, yeah, he had a carryover about 140, maybe it was carried over 140,000.
Right.
but that was for projects planned.
That,
For
but we
this year.
budgeted for project plan and things like that with OPWC. I do know that it sounds like since no bids came in, OPWC is kind of be pushed off to next year.
As of right now, that's what we're looking at.
Yeah,
I mean, that
so,
money's lost a lot of value since the
so I
time
mean,
we
so
had
you're
it.
gonna have, because that's gonna be pushed off to next year, you'll have some additional carryover, but. Yeah, I'm
But-
scrambling.
But we
Well-
can't spend that money because that money has been earmarked for the PWC project.
Yeah,
Well,
that's correct.
Lead them to believe that that money is available because it's not.
It
It's
won't be.
like having it on the shelf and it's going to stay on the shelf because we have committed to the state of Ohio that that money is there for that project.
So even at the end of the year, if we have a carryover more than $1,000, it's earmarked for something else. So
Yeah,
we only
right.
have $1,000.
Yes.
Yes, that's true. But on the flip side, we, the water tower, I made the last $67,000 payment this year. I think next year's payment is only gonna be roughly 23,500, something like that. I don't know how many years that is. So there's, that's a 40, huh? What's that, Terry?
5,
That's for 5 years too?
yes.
So that's $40,000 that we can earmark towards this. That we'll just have to scramble and try, I'll have to figure out some other, for another 40,000. Well, we're improving our water system, so if possibly we could come out with water improvement fund.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It seemed like we had quite a bit of money
Yeah,
left
there's
there
some
last
money
year.
there.
And that money has
Yeah.
really diminished a lot in value since the time we had it, because.
I forgot about the water improvement fund until now. So
Right.
Okay, so Brian, how much is in the water improvement fund?
right now,
Yes.
I don't know offhand. I can get that information here in
Okay.
5 minutes.
I don't want to mislead anybody that there's a lot of money sitting there, because there is not. Because we have put in 2 water lines ourselves already this summer. So that has taken up some funds. So while there might be some there, maybe all the bills aren't paid or whatever, but PO is written as against it. So my job is to present you with what I consider, based on my expertise and on the expertise of the people I'm working with, what I think the best project we have a shot for. If council feels that they want to go for the 1.2, I'm good with that. But and maybe I should have presented that to you also. But I felt the most effective way, the most efficient way, and the best thing for our residents would try to be to get a project that, was doable. So I can be overrode, of course. You all have the final say.
The magic 8 ball in all of this is also the county engineer,
Absolutely.
who knows how he's going to decide what his top 10 are. Yes, there's a grading criteria, but how he determines, you get 10 points for supporting documentation. If Terry turns in 50 pages and someone else turns in 3, and you say, well, it's a much smaller community, so 3 pages is good, they get 10 points. In Baltimore, well, you've done this before, so you only get 8. That's, we've never really had to go through the county engineer, because typically they do township projects.
Yeah, and I don't want to make this run long. I just thought when we came here tonight, we were going to be deciding between 2 projects, and when I got here, we only had 1. So I
No,
just don't understand the reasoning behind it, and I just trying to get all the information. That's all.
Okay, well, when I emailed them out, I had an explanation that these were the 2 projects. So I didn't email out the Market Street. If you thought the Market Street was a project, then you got that information, other than what we had talked about from someone else. And the guys are sitting in the room there. And if there's any of my staff that objects to going Washington and wants to go Market, they have the ability and the right to speak out about that. So, Joey, Tim, Brad, if you have a different opinion, now's the time to state it.
No, you guys are all good with Washington?
I mean, I think that's the consensus from Mike B3 too, right, Terry?
That is correct.
Yes, and I think that's why we're kind of where we're at.
Did the high school and the fire department hook onto this line? No? No,
Well,
they had their
The
own
high
line
school-
from the tower.
Yeah, the high school is fed.
Right past.
Yeah, if you go in between the high school and the fire department, they go around back and the
Yeah.
backside,
back.
they would not be affected.
They're on their own line.
They're on their own.
Basically.
Which is probably already 12s. No?
I don't think so.
So the matching money, the A something P, that was from,
That was from the 700,000 we were supposed to get from COVID funds that the state then said, well, no, townships get some of that too, and they took half of it, so now we get 314.
is there any more of that coming in the future?
No,
No.
not as of right now. Now, they did just at the federal level agree on an infrastructure bill, but it's nowhere near the $1 trillion. So, but yeah, this money gets distributed. We got some and we get the next in February, March of next year, something like that.
I just know we get it next year.
Yeah. So we get $260,000 lumps essentially.
No, it was 157,000 a week ago, and another 157,000 next month.
160. It's roughly 160.
Roughly. Oh, I thought you said 260.
Oh, yeah.
He said
I
160.
thought it was 160.
Yeah.
So what did we find out on which was looked for? Currently in the water improvement fund is, it's holding a $52,000 balance in that fund. But we have some projects that we've earmarked to come out of that fund, so.
Correct.
For this year.
Okay.
The only thing currently funding that fund is tap fees.
And we don't have a lot of those.
So we don't have a lot of those. Right.
Okay. All right. So then what about because the other project then is the INI project. Well, I don't want to, if we still need to talk Washington, but I want to make sure we talk about the INI project as well.
I'm good.
All right. So then we get the INI project, which this is the design project, Terry?
That is correct. We're going to submit that as a design because even though they said 1 to 6 months to be shovel ready, there is no way that we're ready for that. We've had discussions in staff, and I think Mr. Foreman has brought up also about how we need to be able to have a place for them to for the residents to put their water before we tell them they have to disconnect. So I think a design project is called for here. And Vernon Bull thinks that based on this cost estimate, as you see it before you, that they believe that this would qualify for the design project. Basically,
Same.
Oh, they're the same, okay. Sorry.
yeah, V3, excuse me. So the thing of it is that we are not going to give any money towards this in a match. We are going to use the documentation from the EPA, and we think that will in and of itself hold its own. I know the department manager or the head of the EPA sits on this committee because he was in the webinar last Friday. So.
Okay, I had a question. I thought it was probably before you came here, Terry, but I thought we already did a survey of existing EO basin tanks.
The guys are in there. I let them go ahead and
Did you
answer
do
that.
Back when Don was still here, Burton Bull did it, but Don was involved as well.
No.
Survey of the EQ tanks.
P3 did something with surveying the basin, basically how big they can make it within the lines, but that was about all they did. It wasn't very much that they did. So that right there is, I think, might be a little more.
And we did a manhole research too.
We did do
So
a
this is to
manhole.
actually do something, not to just research it again.
Exactly. Yeah, basically right there, they're gonna take flow meters out and probably use our documentation from our smoke testing that we did
Mhm.
at our worst areas, and probably start there with flow meters,
Okay.
pinpointing where most of the flow is coming in during heavy rain events.
So we can try to isolate it.
Exactly, and then, locate disconnections and anything like that, basically stuff that we have to do on our end. Manhole rehab is anything that needs done. There was a survey done.
Locate disconnect, because we asked Mike the other day, that would be sump pump connection.
Absolutely. But
So,
I think the first thing would be the village's utilities disconnected and installed. Yeah, connected first, then go on the manholes, and then go into sub pumps. Fixing our own stuff first
Right.
before we start going around with sub pumps first.
Right, okay.
So
But the manhole rehab money there is to actually fix them, not to study them again.
Okay. Basically to fix those, because
Okay.
that's already been done. I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, Don and I went around, I think every manhole.
Needs some
And
attention.
there, he documented what was needed or not needed, so.
Okay.
Right, so just for clarification then, the project cost up there is the estimated project cost to do all of that, not what we're applying for the grant, but that is for V3 to actually do the engineering so we can do all of that?
Oh, no, we're applying for the $350,000.
Okay, so it's going to be the 350 to come up with the plan to fix everything. And do that?
And maybe it's fat. You know,
I guess I missed the last, because all of these change all the time, I missed the last webinar. So I thought the design grant was to do the engineering for a project that you already had planned. But what I just heard was this was the money to do the project, which to me sounds more like a construction plan.
Oh, no, yeah, and you're right. I guess and again, that goes back to the, whole information that we're getting from everyone. What I did is I talked to V3 and said, give us a design grant and what can we go for? And this is what they gave us. So this would be, I do not believe all of this $350,000 is for engineering, if that's what you're asking me.
I guess that's what we're trying to establish.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to figure out is to me, the design grant is engineering. Not fixing manhole rehabs and doing it.
Too, Mayor.
What's that?
The cost of 8 meters, I assume that's correct, like that.
So that's 8 meters to establish the flow so we know where the problem is. It doesn't fix anything.
No, but it gives you an idea of where to start.
So my question then was on the manholes is $100,000 just, we already studied them. Now we're going to what? Design the solution for
I'm
$100,000?
not really sure.
And then we have to come up with the money to actually fix it.
Yeah, I'm not really sure where they got $100,000 for manhole rehab. I'm not sure what manholes exactly they're talking about. I know there might be some that need rehab. But I'm not really sure where exactly they're getting that information from. But as far as the flow meters, that looks about right. And
Right.
locating, I'm not really sure exactly where they got all these dollar amounts from, but I don't know if that many manholes that really need rehab. I don't even know where they got that information from.
I'm just trying to zero in on whether we're fixing something or talking about fixing something.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm not trying to.
Based on that, looks like that's what they're looking at.
Well,
fixing.
and what I'm worried about, and maybe this is in the documentation that's presented with this, is if I look at this though, to me, that looks like a plan to fix something.
Yeah.
And it's getting submitted as a design grant.
Right.
And so if I'm sitting there scoring it, I'm like, well, they're rehabbing manholes. That's construction, not design. So I think Terry's probably on with V3.
Okay.
So, and I just want to make sure we maximize our ability to get these grants. So. I see you're talking. Anybody else have anything else to add on the I&I one, Washington Street?
I think she did say that on some of the criteria you can get points for is not say for your adding water lines where there is none. There is none from Basel Street to West Market on Washington Street, so I would think maybe that could come into play to give us some of those points.
So depending on how you word that right there, there's none there.
Mhm.
Quite frankly, if the water line was put in 1936, you might as well say it's practically non-existent at this point.
It's a whole
But there,
Yes.
water through it, that's where Washington stops.
Yeah.
That's that.
So we might not be able to get full points for that,
Right,
but it
You know,
it
that's
is
about
extending
half the
certain,
distance, kind of, sort of.
it is extending this, yeah, it is extending the service and replacing a almost 100-year-old line. That would count for something.
Well, the resolution, while we're waiting on Terry, the resolution's straightforward, folks. So
Yeah.
it's, I mean, it is what it is. And it just basically says that you guys grant the village administrator the authority to make application for the grants and to sign any contracts that may be required. And of course, there's emergency language because we're under a tight deadline. So I don't know why they impose these tight
Well,
deadlines.
so this is the one about 4 months ago at a council meeting. I said, hey, the state passed a bill Tim Schaefer actually called me and said, hey, this just passed, just so you know, and then we verified that it included municipalities because everything went through the county engineer. And I had Terry almost immediately contacting Carrie Brown and Jeremiah at the engineer saying, hey, how are you going to do this? And we're like, we don't even know this exists yet. So give us some time to figure it out. And the law said 90 days after it took effect, the county engineer has to submit their list to the Department of Development with the state.
So that's where it comes in.
And then Terry was sending them emails almost weekly. And then like 2 weeks ago is when they finally said, oh, we think we figured out how we're going to do this.
So we may be one of the few people we've been doing it in Fairfield County because of the timeline. And Jeremiah has no reason not to score us pretty high. Because it's not like there's a lot of competition in his county.
We've been ahead of the game because the guys have been working on the plans and the projects ahead of time where everyone else may have been scrambling to pull some stuff up. Because this is the one, the county has not been real good at communicating a lot of this money and funds and stuff, so.
So how much does the county have funding wise?
The county, let me see if I have it in my notes. It's so many millions of dollars split up between each county.
Okay. So what council will need to do is, number one, assign a sponsor to the resolution, and then you'll need to, once it comes up for a reading, bypass committee, suspend the 3 reading rule, and then pass it as an emergency. And that allows it to be submitted by Friday.
All right. Terry, what you got for us?
So I'm on the phone with Brian C. from B3. Brian's explanation of these is that the 350,000 is a little bit of both engineering and fixing the problem. He said it could go either way. Understand that they are working with some, well, Don hasn't worked for the village for a few years. So we may find more that it'll be at the 100,000 for the manhole rehab, or it may be less, based on what they find. But this is a combination of engineering costs and on maybe fixing it. So that's why Brian said we will come out of this with a design, a capital improvement plan, and see, and then itemize what we can fix. He's in a meeting, but he stepped out for me. Is there any other questions that you have that I could ask him?
Yeah, I say, let's
No.
get it done.
We appreciate him stepping out of the meeting.
Okay, we're good. I think everybody's fine. Thank you very much, Brian. I owe you. Bye.
And to answer your question, Jeff, it was $250 million.
It came to Fairfield County.
No, that comes to the Department of Development for the state.
Okay.
And then all 88 counties then
Sure,
submit
I know.
their top 10.
Okay.
And then the Department of Development doles it out.
Got it.
So. How they do that,
Doesn't sound like
Look,
it's well.
try to figure out how the sausage is made.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it's well, that part of it's well. No
No.
harm in submitting an application.
Exactly.
So,
Jeff, you're 100% correct. I don't think any of this is well thought out. Friday from 2 to 5 on Friday afternoon, I listened to people who couldn't even answer questions from the hundreds of us that were on the phone about this grant and about the other funding coming from that the county's getting. So you're correct. I just think so many things are unknown. It just was tried to be pushed through so quickly. And that's why, we've tried to respond to that unorganized timeline. On the house to say it nicely.
All right. So we need a sponsor and then bypass committee and suspend 3 readings. Is there any more discussion on the projects though?
So where would it come out? Service or finance? Probably service.
Yeah, you
Sure.
bypass committee, so
Well,
anybody
yeah,
could
but
do it.
what I'm saying, what committee would have been,
The
this way we know.
projects would have gone through service.
I'll sponsor it then as
All right.
sheriff's service.
That's what I was-
So, thank you, Wade, which means the floor is yours.
So I would like to make a motion that we bypass committee.
Second.
Roll call, Brian?
Cosgray,
Yes.
Coward,
Yes.
McCreary,
Yes.
Atkinson,
Yes.
Foreman. Yes. Hamilton.
Yes.
All right, committee bypassed.
I will make a motion that we suspend 3 readings.
Second.
All right, discussion. No discussion on suspension. Roll call.
Cosgray,
Yes.
Foreman. Yes. Atkinson.
Yes.
McCreary,
Yes.
Hamilton.
Yes.
Coward.
Yes.
All right. And finally, I will make a motion, we adopt the resolution.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Cosgray,
Yes.
Foreman. Yes. Hamilton.
Yes.
Atkinson.
Yes.
Coward,
Yes.
McCreary,
Yes.
2021-23 will be adopted. And it carries emergency language, so Jeff will hand it to me and I'll sign it right now.
There you go.
I was
All right.
looking at.
Terry,
So-
I'm gonna leave the letter for you to sign tomorrow. Will you be in tomorrow? Okay.
Tomorrow's my last day before surgery, and that's why the letter is so greatly appreciated.
Sure.
B3 is going to cover me by making sure everything gets loaded up to the state, and the letter gives them permission. As far as the submission to the county, I will take care of that before I leave Thursday, before I go leave for my surgery. So, and I appreciate everybody coming together so quickly, and keep our fingers crossed that we can come away with at least one of these projects, but also understand that we're still going into our budget talk for this year, and we still have the money that we get from ARP to at least put towards another water line in, if we don't get this one. So,
Sounds like an invitation to motion to adjourn.
Yeah. Sounded like a motion to adjourn. Who seconded it?
Yes. Hamilton.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Hearing none, adjourn at 7:14.
Guys, thanks for coming in.
Yes, thanks, guys.
Hey, thanks, guys.
thank you.
You need to sign front and back, Frank.
All right.
I'll leave it. Let me leave it with you.
I'm good. Yeah.
Okay. And then I'll leave Terry's letter there.
Oh, no, that was.
There we go.